Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Dog Walk, the uncut, unedited, one take, almost daily show where I take my two pooches out for a walk while discussing whatever's been on my mind that day. Today seems like a tropical edition of the Dog Walk. We actually broke records today for temperature. It was, believe it or not, plus 11 degrees outside, which is just crazy considering it's February and we're in Canada. Everything is melting. The girls are going to be filthy because they're going to be full of mud. But I still wanted to take them out. Daisy, what's up? Why are you walking behind me recently? That's new. Usually she was always trying to lead the way. But anyway, today's episode is definitely one where I am going to be in the category of not even mentioning 50% of what I want to talk about. Not just because I ramble on, as usual, but because today I had a specific topic in mind, but for some reason, just as I was about to head out, in the last few minutes as I was getting ready and leashing the dogs, I suddenly realized that my topic was going to be subject to scope creep. For those of you who don't know, scope creep is when you plan on doing something and that sort of balloons and you end up, you start planning on renovating your kitchen and you end up redoing the entire house type thing, right? And anyone who's worked in project management knows that typically scope creep is a bane of actually achieving your objectives, because you end up spending more time talking about or doing stuff that's not related to your primary goal, and you end up running out of funds, time, and money to do what you actually planned to do. So anyway, that being said, what triggered today's topic or today's talk initially was the supper that I made. I was jokingly telling my spouse, or observing to my spouse, how it's crazy that for less money, less cost than a Big Mac meal at McDonald's, I made somewhere between 6 and 7 pounds of food today. And that's an actual fact. How did I do that? You'll wonder. Well, basically I bought and cooked a whole chicken and add a few potatoes, carrots, this and that, a bit of stock, and for about 10 Canadian dollars, which is less than the price of a Big Mac meal, I was able to cook a whole chicken and make a tasty, healthy meal that's gonna have plenty of leftovers. They have so much food left over. But anyway, that got me to thinking, oh my, it's so wet. Yeah, let's follow Misra. Daisy, follow Misra over here. Come on, girls. That's gonna be one of the issues today, because everything's melting. All the smells are coming out, and the girls are gonna be very difficult to handle because of that. Both of these dogs are actually technically hunting dogs or tracking dogs. So yeah, they like to follow their nose, which is gonna be a pain. But anyway, to get back to the topic at hand, originally I wanted to talk about economic stuff. I know the last few episodes I've been talking about the economy and future economy, right? Whoa. Wait for Daisy. It's number one. Okay. And I was basically thinking about how everyone is complaining about the economy, the loss of purchasing power, how everything's too expensive, all of that stuff. And to me, that's because people are lazy. Or they've never been taught how to manage their money, or they just don't want to, again, because they're lazy. The same thing, really. Why do I say that? Well, first of all, how many of you actually cook your meals every single night compared to how many of you go out and eat at a restaurant? How many of you grow your own food as opposed to paying $1 billion for a single organic tomato? How many of you feel more comfortable, so you'd rather drive a huge gas guzzling pickup truck or SUV, even though you've never actually hauled anything in the back of your pickup truck? Oh, except that one time where you moved the couch or whatever, right? But do you actually need a pickup truck, or do you want a pickup truck, right? I think I've mentioned this in one of the previous episodes, how I always found it funny that the major at the unit, was driving an old banged up Mazda 3, and I'd actually also mentioned my CO, the only person who outranked me in the entire squadron, was driving the first one a Prius, an old Prius, and the second one an old banged up Corolla. Meanwhile, our privates and corporals, who make a whole lot less money than we do, well, not a whole lot, that's another problem with the public sector, salaries are not proportional. It's the opposite of in the private sector, where a CEO will make thousands and thousands of times more money than their employees, right? The salary curve is an exponential function when you're in private, or compared to responsibility, whereas in the public sector it's the opposite. It's a logarithmic curve. And if you don't know what that is, look it up. I don't have time to explain. But anyway, so I was going to talk about all of this economy related stuff, and make the usual point of basically people are lazy and they want to pay for convenience, and then they complain because they're so used to it that when things, the restaurant costs start to balloon, when grocery prices start to increase, all that stuff, they can't deal with it, and they wonder why they can't afford their previous lifestyle. I think Mistra's getting ready to make it. Yep, there you go. Mistra's about to make a deposit, so while she does that, before I pause, I'll just say that also applies to even people who make food at home. How many, oh, she's already done. Okay, I'll keep going after I pause. 1 second. Okay, we are back. So even at the grocery store, I see so many people go and they will just always buy the same thing, whether it's pre-made food or those pre-made meals and all of that stuff, or even talking about just raw produce, meat, etc. So few people seem to shop intelligently. It's like they have a plan to say, hey, we're gonna have steak this week, and they go to the grocery store, and it doesn't matter if the steaks are $1 million, they're still gonna get the steak. So few people seem to go to the grocery store like I do, with, yes, a basic list. There's always a few essentials, right? But I never put a specific meat on my list, because I go to the grocery store and I buy what happens to be on sale that week. I buy what's on sale that week, and I buy, usually, at least at my grocery store and many others that I've seen, there's stuff that's about to expire, that's a day or two off, and they have usually 50% discounts on them, or 30% discounts, or huge markdowns, because the things they're about to go bad, right? And go bad being a relative term. I think I actually didn't mention it. Yeah, I won't go down my mom and my. Anyway, that's a story for another day. I'll just say, so I go to the grocery store and I buy only pretty much stuff that's on sale, along with always one or even two quote unquote enjoy tonight deals, 50% markdowns, one which I will consume that night, and if it's really a good deal, the rest I'll bring home, I'll freeze it, and I'll now have something in the bank for weeks or months later down the line that I can take out, and that cost me so much less than if I had bought it at full price. No one seems to do that. That just boggles my mind, because it's not like I'm poor or I don't make a lot of money. I just choose to spend my money smartly. Same thing goes with driving my car. Same thing goes with the house. I have a house. I could have afforded a mortgage that, like, the bank was willing to loan me literally twice the amount that I have on my mortgage. But I didn't want to be house poor, so I controlled myself. And that's where the scope creep was come in, because really, when I think about it, this applies to almost every domain of life. And I think that the reason why people are like this is not just because they haven't been taught to shop smartly, but also because people have been raised in comfort for convenience, and they do not, what's the word I'm looking for? People don't struggle. People are not used to struggling to there's a word that I had in mind that's just now escaping me. I'm really sorry, because it's an obvious word, the opposite of convenience. But anyway, what I'm trying to say, like, people are raised, and I'm seeing this a little bit with my spouse, who she really wants to keep Felix away from, any risk, any danger, any possible little thing that might do anything to him. I, on the other hand, think that struggling is a good thing. That's one of the things that I really agree with Nietzsche on. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't think I've done my Nietzsche episode yet. I've mentioned several times that he's kind of my philosophy hero, but I should talk a bit about why and what he thought. Yeah, I'll put that on the list of future topics. Anyway, I think struggle makes us stronger. Inconvenience is actually good for us, and we are raising a generation of people who are so used to having everything done and delivered to them, to being told that they're special, that they're the best, that they expect the world to just give them everything, and are completely unwilling to face any type of discomfort. And I think that's a huge problem with our current society. That discomfort can be something as simple, to bring it back to my first point, as having to spend time and effort cooking your meal as opposed to just ordering it from the restaurant. Like, if you're Daisy, if you're what's going on? What are you barking at? There's nothing. If you're a lawyer or whatever and you'd rather spend an extra billable hour to make $100 and order takeout, okay, fine, that's a different story. You've got a net gain, right? Because you're making $100, but you're spending 50 on your meal as opposed to spending only 20. So you save $30 on the one hand if you would have cooked the meal, but since you're making $100 instead, it's kind of a profit of 70. If hopefully you follow what I'm trying to say. So there's circumstances where, yeah, okay, it's fine to get others to provide a service to you. But I truly think that making the effort to try to fix your leaky faucet yourself, sweating to transport the rocks in your backyard and dig your garden yourself, as opposed to just paying $100 to rent a backhoe and digging it all up that way. All those discomforts, sleeping in a tent while you're on a road trip instead of getting a fancy hotel, or just getting normal stuff as opposed to super fancy stuff, having to adapt your week's grocery list to what's on sale as opposed to just what you felt like having that day, and no compromise and this and that. I think that's bad for us. The struggle really helps build character and build understanding. It's so hard, I think, for someone who's in a good situation to empathize with their fellow human beings who are struggling if they've never actually struggled themselves, right? You just can't. If you haven't lived it, it's very hard to understand it. I hope that makes sense. So what I'm trying to say is that we're raising a generation that is completely unable to deal with discomfort or with deceptions, or hopefully that's the right English word, like something that makes you were hoping for something and you get something that's less, so that's a deception. And French it is, sorry, feels I'm struggling because in English deception also means when you're trying to trick someone. So hopefully I'm not using the wrong word. But anyway, being able to deal with disappointments, that's the word. What was I saying? That's a life skill that too few people have now, and you can't relate anymore to I'll use this example. My grandfather, using only hand tools, and after 10 to 12 hour shifts at the tire factory, built his entire house to house his wife and 9 kids by himself using hand tools. How many people have built a deck? How many people have built their own deck as opposed to hiring someone? I meant, how many people have built their own deck without using power tools? Like, no one does that nowadays. You can't understand the effort that goes in there. And I think that by not putting in the effort, you lose the appreciation of the thing. which then leads to another topic I've talked before about everything feeling disposable, everything being replaceable, and how that's not the world I want to live in, right? Hopefully you've seen that episode, or maybe I can link it in a card if I remember to do so. But I guess my point is that I feel I'm starting to ramble a little bit. People are struggling financially because they're not willing to adapt the current situation, and because they're not willing to compromise, and because they're not willing to drive something that's not a big pickup because they think it's more convenient, or because their friends told them that they should drive a pickup, or because that hip hop video that they watched had this cool. Anyway, you get what I'm trying to say, I hope. And that's gonna come back to bite everyone in the derriere very soon, because my friends, the struggle is only gonna get worse. I know I keep harping on AI, but it's an actual thing you need to be worried about, because AI will take your job, or if not your job, it will take your child's job and your grandchildren's job. And you need to start to build the character that will allow you to deal with these more difficult times, not only for yourself, but also so that you can teach those lessons to your own children, so that they can build a character and that they are well equipped for the real world, which is going to be so different from today's world, when there's no more jobs and this and that. I don't think anyone's ready for it. So, yeah, if you're wondering why you're struggling financially, maybe look at that ATV that you have parked in your garage. Look at the size of your garage or your house. Look at the size of your TV. Look at the food that you're eating every day, at the convenience that you're paying for as opposed to quality. Is there really an excuse? You can learn everything online nowadays. Anyone who says, I don't cook because I don't know how to cook, I'm sorry, but that's BS. You can go, there's so many free cookery courses, so many easy to follow recipes online. You have no excuse other than laziness. You might say time, but again, everyone has 24 hours in a day, and your grandparents were able to feed their 9 children with much, much more basic tools and appliances than you have access to. So don't give me that. It's not a real excuse. You don't have time because you're spending too much time scrolling on Facebook or on TikTok, right? You don't have time because you're sleeping 10 hours per night. You don't have time because you choose to do activities that bring you pleasure as opposed to working for and earning what you want. I'm sure this is a generalization, and people who are already really in the struggle and making minimum wage and have several kids, well, I won't get into that one. If you can't afford kids, that's why are you making... Anyway, I won't get into that. That's a completely different topic, and I'm sure it's going to be very controversial. Again, I'll just point to the opening minutes of the movie Idiocracy, and the smart doctors versus Bubba J, or whatever his name is, to illustrate my point. So yeah, stop making excuses and start adapting, because worse times are coming. Hopefully, I'm not scaring everyone. I do really believe that there are some people who actually are validly struggling and they are doing everything that I just mentioned, and still they're struggling. Those people, my hat's off to you. You're actually doing the right thing. What I'm talking more about is those people who pay for convenience, like I just mentioned. And I just feel that there's going to be more and more people in that first category as everyone continues to accumulate credit and debt to pay for convenience. So, time to wake up, change our habits, earn a bit of resilience, and teach our children to be resilient. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. Am I completely off base, or am I onto something here? Thanks again, and have a good evening.